Open things up with Biron's line striking, and you can see both sides had some routes. This was not an attempt to force their way across the bank river line there. That's an annoying piece of terrain. So even with foot units, that's just movement effects. Even with foot units going across it, it's a -2 to the regular shock, -3 to the cav shock. You just don't want to play around with that. So I did a full, just plain old carousel. And carousel is pretty nice because it doesn't keep you locked in. You can rally. The problem, of course, is, well, the British line can also rally. And it means whatever you hit with first is all you're really going to hit with unless you start shifting some troops around. Now, I got to remember I can shift troops around and rally at the same time. For the Brits, these guys still aren't part of the line, so they got to keep moving their half movement. I've got these cav coming up. I'm going to deploy them somewhere. I'm not quite sure what to do with them because they can't really deal with this cav unless they place themselves across this line. The fact that you know, I'm doing the carousels mean I just go forward, fire, come back. And a little bit of rallying taking place. My commander up here, he gets to go in the no limbs phase. Was able to bring 2 of his 3 routed units back. He couldn't rally the whole line like he used to. He can only use his orders number for that. That's a significant limitation. These units are going to wear out much quicker than we saw in the other scenarios, especially when you throw in this fatigue. Maybe a little too quickly. The rallying felt a little extreme, but I kind of liked aspects of it, which was, well, what rallying meant was your lines didn't do much because rallying was so effective. Generally, they could take a little bit of time to form up again and prepare for another round of fighting. Now, I feel like it's less likely you're going to rally units, though they still, at least when they're just disordered, they still go from disordered to routed all at once. So you might pick off your routed units, prevent them from running away. I think it's going to really change the flavor of the game. I'm not sure which way I like it better. It felt like things were disintegrating fast enough under the old rules. I mean, everything, the 2 battles that I fought went under, they both failed. They both ended in an army breaking. I got to write down my numbers for that somewhere. Again, launched their attacks, and you can see these didn't go too well. We got some routed. I think this one's new and this one's new. English forces coming off there. I know this one is. This one's got to be too. So, you know, it's still kind of this mix-up, but the points are accumulating for the French there, and for the English, they're going to keep accumulating as well until they hit that 9. I guess they just stay there, and 1 turn of rest will bring them back down to somewhat better condition. The rules for the fatigue seem a little wanky. Basically, there's a 1-point disadvantage to a number of things, including rally rolls and stuff like that. The way it's worded, it actually gives them an advantage for rallying and for reaction, which makes absolutely no sense to me. Those should just be +1s across the board there, as far as I can tell. I don't think there's anywhere where a minus would make any sense. So we've got reinforcements coming on. And it's not clear to me how you're supposed to cope with them. Do they get a limb, or do they just come on as if they're under command on the first turn? And that I'm doing the latter. So, you know, although maybe I didn't last time. So now the Brits are going to get to deal with their cav here and try to set that up in a way to threaten Biron's force. Rapid move. This is one command, Grimaldi's command. Now, I'm going to have to double up units at some point, but right now they're rapid marching, so they can't. He's only got a range of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, he's barely able to hold something this size. This is the size of the commands that you're bringing on in this game. Next turn, it looks like we'll be playing for real pretty soon with you know, the limbs going in the cup and all that crap. But we've already made it through halfway through the game. That brings us to the 4 p.m. turn from now on. French are just going to be rolling for reinforcements each turn. Allies, well, theirs are going to come in according to this schedule, but many of them are going to be offset by an hour. Makes for a pain in the ass because I'm going to have to be looking back in the chart and all this, that, and the other. Normally in games I like to stack the reinforcements on the turn order chart. That's really impossible when you're looking at this many reinforcements on a turn. I might want to put the leaders on there though, just to give some kind of indication that there's something coming in, because the little notations here aren't going to work. They're not all an hour off. Some of them are different. For the Brits. For the French, we're just rolling and we see whether or not we get a line at any given time. But for the Brits, what we're worrying about here is, let's see, the ones with single asterisks are going to be all delayed an hour, but the double asterisk there is delayed on a 7 through 9 by 1/2 hour. That's crossing at other places than that bridge. Just pain in the ass. You'll see some units still routing away. One of the things is, yes, the regular command rally has been significantly curtailed, but the normal rallying function, where an out of command unit gets to roll all by itself whenever it likes, and or, well, you also have the option at the end of your turn during your route and reformation to make a different attempt to rally by unit. Again, the rules aren't absolutely clear that that's the way it's meant to be. This could be an artifact carrying over from the original game that wasn't even intended to have those 2 rally phases, but it kind of provides some sort of parity to the fact that you can do something, including a possible rally, and then do this. Plus, it allows you to fully rally, because if you're routed, if you roll for a rally during the out of command phase, you can only upgrade 1 level, whereas the normal rally procedure pumps you all the way up. I got no idea what to do with these artillery. I think from now on I'm going to play them as though they're regular artillery in the game, that they can only operate if the limb comes up. You want to throw it in, that's fine. You want to throw 2 of them in, you get nothing else. There are plenty of troops on the board now, so I don't see much point to just doing an artillery barrage. I think I got tons of things to do in addition to that. All right, so I'll start putting some of these down, and then other than that, we're ready to roll. Okay, with all the delays in place, these are where the items are coming in. I'm glad I checked, because Argyle's forces, sort of a multinational Danish, some Dutch, and some, I think Hanover, I'm not sure. I could find that out pretty easily. Indeed, those dark browns are Hanoverians. Came marching on as well. What to do with them, I am not entirely sure. Probably try to fill in some of the gaps in the British line, because that thin line is unable to hold. Yep. All right. The Allies opened up with a big pick of command points. French only, crap, should only have 1. But the French won the initiative. Now, this doesn't affect, I'm going to throw the artillery out. I would have taken Grimaldi. I want to make sure that he can fast move into place, because Biron is under a bit of stress there, I would say. That doesn't affect if there's a reinforcement coming in. The reinforcements don't show up until here, which is another indication that they won't cost a command point to bring on the board. And to do that, we simply roll a die to see what we get. And we get a 7. Vendôme is going to get to bring in a unit. Now, I could bring in some of Burgundy's units instead, but the problem with that is Burgundy, I actually couldn't pick Biron's force for a limb. Burgundy will not be on the field, and I can't transfer the units over to Vendôme's control, so they'll just march on and then maybe get a no limbs phase. So I will take one of Oudenarde's units into play. All right, well, under the auspice, the no limbs phase, I kind of cheated and accidentally attacked with Baron's troops, his infantry, without having made a roll check, but hey, whatever. Both sides had routes. Both sides largely recovered, so there are no actual casualties yet. These units are feeling a lot less capable of recovering, maybe for a number of reasons. In terms of organizational-wise recovery, because of the order there, also the fatigue rules, just it all combines to something where I don't feel like I can hold a line anymore. Things are just getting shattered left and right, especially the British line, which in the famous victory rules and the kind of bastardization that I was playing with would have held pretty well until they took significant punishment. The fatigue rules increase their chance of breaking. And then it's harder to keep a line together and rally it as well. So, I was able to rally a couple of units over here, but not the whole force. And now, actually, I've got, I don't think I have anything. I have this unit. This could try to rally. I might as well. Yeah, that was not wise. That guy's going to turn and run. He's going to cause some problems over here to Argyle's troops as they're routed through. The Argyle force is gathering itself over on the flank. I didn't feel like I had enough cav strength here to cope with this huge infantry formation, and now there's a huge cav formation coming up into play again as well. I know under the old rules these would just destroy this little force, and that is as it should be. So I'm feeling like I've been thrown onto the defensive with the allies here. I'm not quite sure what kind of situation we're going to see here at all. I've got to position Van Damme so he can command things. Let's see. Yeah, he'll have everything under command there. I didn't count the hexes, but I'm sure that's within 12. And meanwhile, here, I can actually assign Eugen down here to kind of take the flank, just to give me a little bit more security in terms of keeping units together. After that failed rally during the out of supply phase, I can make another rally attempt, and that also is not going to succeed. So we actually have our first casualty. It wouldn't have routed faster, but it takes a casualty. See if there are any French I want to rally here. Rallying's so difficult that I'm going to go for these guys too. Unfortunately, these things look almost like -1s from my side, but when I look in the camera, I think they're all +1s. And that makes sense because most of the French forces are 0 morale. But the typeface on the morale levels in this copy is more difficult to read than it was on a famous victory. Overall, I feel like there were some things I would have tweaked in the first game. This feels like the design was just more chaotically shaken up than it was in the first. And I'm almost feeling like that bastardization was a more pleasant set of rules. We'll see, because this is such a chaotic battle. In terms of it not being laid out initially with units fairly close to each other, that maybe it's not very representative, and maybe we'll have to take a look at Malplaquet under these rules, see if it plays out a little better. But as of right now, this is feeling really, really less like linear combat and more like mob combat over here, at least. And I finished things off, and you can see some of Württemberg's cav is routing. This is because they were too scared after crossing that river, so they crossed it again. We ended up losing a French unit, so we're going to have 7 casualties on each side. For the French, I have to worry about a dividing line. Those were infantry casualties, so they count against both totals, essentially. We see some cav that turned and ran. This is a matter of disordered units. If you have disorder from terrain under this system, well, it's so hard to rally things by command. So Württemberg, it would take him an hour to get his units recovered from crossing that stream. So I had to roll, and, well, half my units ran away. It is not feeling reasonable to me at all at this point. I don't know if it's going to clear up or start feeling any better. But, yeah. It's got massive chit picks, 4 and 6. It means basically all the chits are in, all the French ones are in the cup, except for a couple that, you know, I can't use Vendôme without getting rid of all my other chits, and I can't use 2 artillery without getting rid of all my other chits. Likewise for the Allies, I can't use Marlborough or Eugen without superseding the other chits. Okay, great. Problem is, I don't know what to pick. I have an artillery piece here that I could unlimber. Okay, that's great, but that doesn't do me any good, so I'm not going to do that. But my other options, Württemberg, I'm probably going to take a rally option with him. I'm in no hurry to do that. Natskinger, whatever. I want to pull out of there, but I'm also in no real hurry to do that. These guys aren't going to be able to hit me. They're too far away. They have to be 1 hex away to be able to strike, and even then I can evade them. Okay. Argyle. Argyle's got this disjointed line. If I move any of it, it goes up to the 2-point penalty. So I can't really do anything with him. I could take some section of the line and say rally this unit or whatever, but that's about all I can do, and I can't combine him with Argyle or do anything tricky like that that I was able to do in the other game. Why is that so terrible? Well, it means I can't fill in the line or anything like that. I can't create a new line. I've got this disjointed problem that it's the cost to try to reorganize it is almost impossible. Basically, if I took a movement action, that would drive me up to the danger area, and I could move a couple of pieces, and I'd still be covering more territory than I want to cover, and this, that, and the other. That's probably what I'm going to have to do, but I really don't want to. But then the other option, I'm sorry, that's Cardigan. Argyle, well, I can't move him forward because Cardigan is in my way. I don't want to make a second disjointed sliced apart line. So I'm just faced with all these horrible choices here. Whether that's bad or good, I don't know. I don't really like the interpenetration of lines that was so easy in the other system, but and it's only not allowed here because of the fatigue rules requiring that you keep track of who's with what line. But yeah, I think I'm forced to take Cardigan, march him, and, you know, get myself up to the +2 penalty. Either that or launch some sort of sporadic attack against one of these French units and send myself to the +2 territory. That sounds like a really bad idea. I'm just kind of left with nothing that I like the idea of. I'll probably do some withdrawal. I think I can do that under movement and pull back a little bit, exchange a little fire, but I don't know. Maybe nothing particular about the new rules except whatever effect the fatigue might have, which is none here. But, you know, I withdraw from some of Biolon's troops, and in the firing that goes on as I'm withdrawing, I rout them. Tough to believe disorder makes sense. Routing in certain circumstances just doesn't. And I don't know, maybe I'm just grumpier this time than I have been in the prior couple playings, and the real flaws of the system are beginning to show themselves more to me. I'm not sure. And there's the cost. So I pay that. That was to withdraw 1 unit. That's all I'm allowed to do. Everything else is out of command. In fact, I had to be a little closer to have that in command. I don't know. But yeah, it's, you know, I feel so hampered by the command rules in this version with the fatigue. It's one of the reasons, maybe the abstractions of the other one, allowing you to intermingle lines and do all this kind of crap that doesn't make sense, they made it kind of a playable game. As it is, you can barely do anything with any of the units under these rules. I don't know. It's not the new rules, other than the fatigue rules and the requirement that you keep your lines connected. Because otherwise I could, yeah, command this and then have a big Argyle command moving all those pieces. But what it does is kind of shows, once you start tacking things on to a system that was already kind of shaky, the system worked by kind of getting rid of the line commands and not making lines really operate as a singular object, because this requirement to remain in contact, that was already a pretty hefty requirement. And now once we throw that, once we add to that this additional burden that you have to maintain your original line in contact, that's what's really breaking this apart. It's making it much, much harder, because, you know, I'm not going to have the opportunity to say move these pieces to bring them in. It's going to take me hours to dress my line again. That doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. Humongous sweeping move by the cavalry, which, you know, 16 hexes as long as I stay at distance. Great, you know, okay. Fast movement, then you form up. I'm cool with the abstraction there. I'm not cool with the lack of abstraction here. So Biron moves 1 unit, so now he's got 2 units that he can put in command at once, perhaps. That's the best he can do right now. Basically, these 2 formations are shattered. They fought each other a little bit. There were some retreats. It's over. They're out of the battle. They can't do anything. They're probably their best chance, their best ability to get together is to do so under no orders. Whatever the leaders can provide is almost nothing. And that's one thing. These guys are going to be able to form up again under the no command orders. Well, not where there's engaged troops, but that's okay. It's just going to take us, you know, an hour and a half. And whatever we do, the fact that we moved already means that we don't get a charge. Now, I forgot to move Biron. He's going to be penalized. His, I don't like the split command thing either, but his cav did a carousel and drove away one of, here it was bounced off, but drove away one of the English infantry at the same time that the carouseling cav retreated. Both got routes. They both turned and run. Again, that doesn't feel terribly accurate. It's not as bad when you have 2 big lines grinding against each other and that happens, but when it's just units picking each other off like this, it just doesn't feel quite right. Again, maybe it's more the situation of this battle is bringing out these issues than other things. I've got a few more chits to draw. We pilgrim all these units up, and they're beginning to tire. All that walking, you know. And likewise, Argyle's tiring out, and he's got a problem. He's completely surrounded 1 English unit that's part of Cardigan's line, and he is trapped there forevermore until I can start getting Argyle's troops, you know, out of its way. Mixed some rallying along with regular force combination. I'm not really thrilled with the move and rally. Not with the same unit, obviously. I kind of liked the restriction of, okay, which did you want to do? I don't know. I feel like my bastardized rules made me happier than what seems to be the real intention here, especially when you add the fatigue, which just feels like this horrible tack on to the whole game, especially with the effect on the lines. I got one more chit left. It's these cav that I have no idea what to do with, except I want to get them out of there. They never should have moved up. The bridge they crossed is all clogged up now, so they've turned around and they're trying to do the best they can to get out of the way of this huge cav force, but obviously they're going to be closely pursued. Now, you can't catch cav in this game unless you can kind of surround them, because they'll just turn 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 6, 7, 8, and be facing you again back here. So the cav can keep withdrawing fairly easily. It just looks really much worse than it actually is. They are getting away as long as they aren't 1 hex away at the end of any turn, because there's no way to really force them to run them down. That's going to put us to, and I mean, you don't see that in the other battles, because the other battles, everything's kind of in a nice linear place. You want to drive forward, but in this battle, I don't want to be forward, and we're seeing what you have to do to kind of extricate. It doesn't really bug me, although it is kind of a pain in the ass. So we're going to the no limbs phase. There's really nothing in the no limbs phase, so we drop to the out of command phase. There actually is something in the no limbs phase. I forgot to roll for reinforcements. I'm going to get another line in for Van Damme here. All right, some more as we finish up this turn. Another French unit disintegrated. Oh, I better check the letters for that. That's an O. That won't be in the next scenario. You can see another big horde ready to move in, replace Baron. And you really do need to replace units, because this thing is just such a mess now. It's up, getting a penalty on everything it does. If I want to get the line together, I've got to take more fatigue. If I don't want to get the line together, well, it's never going to do anything. The standard kind of bounce back and then maybe route off the board, maybe start slowly making its way back up. But basically, no unified command. I got 3 units here that are in command. All of the cav, they're all scattered all to hell in creation. I think there's probably one I could have moved, I don't know, somewhere in there, who knows. Over here we got Württemberg's command in 3 segments. Cardigan starting to come together, except for the 2 units that have broken off. This guy's just stuck in the middle of those Danes and Dutch for the rest of eternity, it seems. All right, so we start another turn. About equal CPs, 4 and 3. The Allies actually didn't even want all 4, but they have to take them if they can. They're going to have another unit coming in here. Lotrum, I don't know what he is. He's this infantry? No, he's this infantry here. Mainly Prussian forces. Don't know which hex, but it's either here or here. And the French actually are getting 2 of their lines coming in, and we're already deep into Burgundy. The next line that comes in will bring Burgundy on the board, but for now we get to pull. I'm going to be pulling 2 infantry lines and just slicing them across to get them behind. Right now the position just looks hopeless for the Anglo-Dutch army, as the whole French army is coming on the field. Whether or not it'll all get to move and engage is a totally different thing. The English picked their artillery first. We'll fire that off, see if we can. We got 1 gun. We'll see if we can do something. Basically, I don't want to do anything until I see what the French do. I want them to move first, but that's not how initiative works in this game. I'm done with the limbs for the turn. Argyle's command, I was thinking about attacking with it, but when I saw this mass coming forward and then this other one, I'm along the lines of, shit, I gotta stay back. I did form up into a tighter line, though, to the extent that some of these, when they're in the out of command phase can move up and try to reinforce Cardigan up there. I was wrong about these guys. They're looking like they're having a hard time getting out of there. I'm going to be able to swing around and at least hit them with one unit. And not that I terribly want to do that. I want to probably push through. Had to take Oudenarde's action. Now he's swinging around here. That gives a couple of out of command units that'll try to push towards him. Kind of a mess in terms of the Allied cav over here. It's in a lot of danger. And, well, this doesn't look terribly solid against what it's going to be facing, but we'll see. It's got some nice terrain on it. Maybe they can repulse some of that. Oh, who the hell are these? These are part of Oudenarde's command. Yeah, they're going to have to move towards him too. He could have commanded them instead and shifted them over. I didn't realize I had them on the board there. All right, well, now we're on the no command, or out of command stuff, and over here that says Cardigan and Biron. I didn't take any artillery, plus any loose stuff. Well, no, that's the out of command stuff, but then the reinforcements are going to come in at the same time. In the example of Cardigan, I would love to be able to rest with him because he's all the way up at that bad +2 place, which means if he takes fire, he's probably going to run. But the only way I could rest is to take a turn to withdraw first. So instead I marched up. It doesn't hurt me anymore to do things, I guess. Doesn't seem to be a restriction against using your forces. And I pushed up and took the river line there to give myself a more solid defense. This way, well, if Biron wants to attack, let him. He'll be in bad enough shape. Neither Cardigan nor Biron can recover because both of them have a unit next to each other. So no matter what, they're going to have this kind of problem in terms of their forces just sitting there tired for the rest of the game unless one of them does something like a withdrawal. A notable thing I can't do is just have these guys who are parked here firing at each other. If I want to launch any kind of assault fire, I have to sweep across. Biron has moved his infantry kind of out of the way. I didn't have much I could do with the cav. I recovered one unit or one stack. I want to get them out of the way, but mainly just so that I can bring this huge force through, which is going to kind of get funneled in this way because I don't have space for them anywhere else, but they won't be able to move until the no orders phase. I'm going to put a little marker on this guy to say, hey, I moved him. A little marker here to say, hey, I didn't move him. I didn't move him either, but he can't do much. Well, he could do a fighting withdrawal, actually, and that would get him in connection with the rest of his command. Basically, every unit has its own command status at this in a way that they didn't before in the other battles, and that's largely you know, I can't blame anything except the meeting engagement on that. The fact that my command got some holes blown in it, and now there's nothing, I can't put another command into place and fill it up. On the Allied side, certainly they could have filled in using Argyle's troops the way that I did in the other scenarios, but Biron could not have done that. His problem there has to do with the meeting engagement and a low density of troops on the field. I don't think this system can handle that. I highly doubt that those commands just get disordered as soon as they face anything because they don't have another line to throw in. Another line being another complete command, not some reserve of this line that's backing it up. Now, of course, well, no. I was going to say, obviously I might have some doubled units, but those are all over here in Argyle's command. Both of these lines are pretty much spread out as much as they could. There's a lot of battlefield to cover along that river line. These units were barely big enough to hold it, but they can't try to do anything reasonable. They can't try to dress their line or anything very easily because of this inability to act. I don't know how unreasonable that is, because once it gets shattered, I mean, how reasonable is it that another whole command could help you fill in? And how unreasonable is it that a half hour's firing could disrupt you for the next half hour, so you have to kind of use out of command orders to get your line back together. The only real problem is this damn fatigue thing. It feels like such a disincentive to move your units, but I guess you just put up with the fact that your stuff, if it's been on the line for a couple hours, it's gonna break. All right, so this is what we have at the end. All these French forces pushing in. I'm leaving a command delimiter there. I think that's close to what it is. It doesn't really matter. I just brought the units in. They could have been aligned differently. There is a bit of a problem, which is that if these guys don't get a command in an action in the no limbs phase, if they don't move forward at all, there's no place to put the cav that's behind them. So I'm going to have to move at least one of them by auto move. I may move them both by auto move, which only is going to move them a couple of spaces forward. I got a pretty big cav force coming in. Yeah. Okay. I can, of course, stack and create bigger forces. But, you know, if I'm stacking these guys and not charging forward with them, they're never going to make it by the end of the battle. And if they move each turn just a couple of hexes, they're going to fatigue during that, and crap. Okay, but things look horrible if you take everything into account. Now, that should be the case. I mean, if you take the total amount of French forces into account here, boy, do they outnumber. You have some Prussians coming on the board with a few Dutch. There are still more Allied forces coming on, though. I got 4 more commands coming into play here. They probably aren't going to get anywhere either, but we don't know for sure. A few, 2 more French and 1 English infantry regiment battalion ended up just leaving for no good reason. These were not units that were routing, but I needed to do a morale check on them just because, well, among other things, hey, maybe they'll leave the field, but which is what some of them did, or I can rally them, and that saves me an effort. They can eventually connect up with the rest of the troops or be able to do something or whatever. It doesn't really make much difference. My points, are so far away. 26 out of 225 for the infantry. They're 14 out of 240. I'm never going to hit the army collapse levels. So what the hell? There's no need to conserve units the way there is in some of the other scenarios. All right, a new morning doesn't help my mood here. The French got the bigger CP picked, both fairly low for the amount of armies we have on the board. I can't use CPs on either of these. The French also won initiative, and we're going to move Duras' cav. Basically, I'm moving the 3 big formations I can move. For the English, harder choice, but I want to get this infantry up, so I'll fast move it if I could. And I got to get these guys out of here. They're in the way, and that means Oudenarde's going to be on the no limbs, which is fine. All right, let's get started moving lots and lots of French units to no purpose, basically. So 2 cav units moved. The Natsmers got their chance to withdraw. I need a little marker here. This is part of Oudenarde, I think. I have no idea. But here's the problem. They got their chance to withdraw because Duras' big cav wasn't able to hit more than 1 of them. So I decided to send it around to where the terrain is better. I may not follow up on that. I may turn and hit because now Natsma is kind of stuck between the rivers. Of course, if he jumps the rivers, yes, all his units are disordered, but it's harder for the French to pursue across that. So it's safer to withdraw across something like that than attack across it. So I may continue up this way. The problem there is I'm stretching what I might be able to command from Van Damme. So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I could probably put Van Damme here. I can't really get this command around this stream very easily. I might be able to do it all in kind of one and get the leader over here or something. But it is going to be more problematic. And then there's just not much room for all these units. Not that they're likely going to get to move, but we'll see. I see the English have finished their deployment along the river line with Lodom. I've still got another command coming in. This is a pile of infantry this turn that I'm allowed to dispatch to any of the lines. I don't know if it's any. Maybe not Cardigan. But basically, it's unassigned and then becomes assigned after I take care of it. I think this is the only time I'm going to play with the fatigue rule. It's kind of a pity because there are aspects I like of the fatigue rule, but keeping the lines together is too high a cost. And I don't think the fatigue rule adds that much to the game in concept. Now let me look at, if I can find this, what I'm looking at here. I'm looking at a huge horde. That's this, and we got to follow this B to see how to do it. There's no commander as they enter. They're assigned to a foot line already on the map or join Weeks, who isn't coming in this turn. You know, that's kind of an obnoxious thing, but basically I'm going to be able to stiffen my 3 infantry lines. Those lines are big enough as it is. And then I can't really withhold it until Weeks comes in, because that's with Overkirk. That's not going to be till here, and he has a big enough force on his own. So I don't know. Took a little bit of a break. Sounds like I have some noise like I used to. It's just, I think, road work going on. I don't know, but kind of brings me back. Took a little break because of Grimaldi here. I thought it was going to launch in with this major assault, and I wanted to start on getting something effective done today. Well, taking another break to play now, I see that Grimaldi was a little too far away. He could only hit, there were only a couple of hexes he was 1 hex away from, or 2 hexes or whatever, so he could only hit a couple of these units. So I've built up a stronger position to launch an attack on the corner here. So next turn we're going to see, well, this isn't ready to hit yet. They're not quite in line, but next turn we're going to see the attack in there. And, you know, we've only gone, what, 2/3 of the way through the game without much of anything happening. I'm fine with that, but now we move on to the no limbs phases, and here I've got to make decisions. Do I roll for these guys to see if I can move them a little further and maybe actually get them into the battle, or do I just ensure that they come in so that my cav, which also has a decent roll to move, gets to move? And again, you know, these just degenerate really quickly. It almost feels like, see, the game was designed for units that are facing each other in battle to have the morale listed. I almost feel like this should be the inverse of what the chart is. It should be a bonus to your disruption checks if you're fresh, so that you don't end up bouncing off each other all over the place. The route checks are tough enough in this series that it just feels like the chart is heading in the wrong direction. Maybe a +1 over on the 9 space. Make the 6 through 8 the norm, and anything below that give you like a -1, because I don't feel like the fatigue rules work terribly well. I also do not obviously like what they enforce on you in terms of maintaining your line position. It makes it really hard, not just to keep track of, which is what the game seems to worry about, the designers seem to worry about, but to have the same kind of flexibility and movement that you have in the other. I feel like there were abstractions that were taken into the other game and play tested to some extent to say, hey, this kind of works. You know, it may not accurately model everything in detail, but it gives you an overall picture that kind of works. And that's against everything that I usually like, but you can't model everything in detail ever. So there has to be some point where you make that shift. Of course, it could just be my resistance to change, right? All right. The French went first, so they're going to have the first no-limb phase. And, well, we'll kick that off. Jeez. See, I got these Biron troops that I don't know what the hell to do with. Because that's like two separate commands. Probably want to get them out of the way first. I'll probably just do a normal, a free order with that to move them. And I think that's the end of the no limbs phase. New allied force come in, and I've designated all of these to already be attached to Cardigan. I may send some of these over too. Here's the problem. These guys are now out of command unless I attach them all to Cardigan. If I do attach them all, then I get rid of this leader. He's not allowed to command them to move, though. So they're just going to be sort of straggling their way into these other commands, I guess. Another problem, the fatigue roll. These supposedly fresh units, they're all at the fatigue level of the units that they just replaced, which you could do some hand waving about that or whatever, but it does mean, though, if I want to position them with other units, they're going to hurt the fatigue levels of those other units. So I haven't hurt anybody yet this turn, but man, I'm not sure I want to allocate I may want to just allocate them all to Cardigan, or I may not want to count them until they can align with their unit so that they're not sort of straggling into place and costing the other unit additional fatigue roll points. That's problematic for this situation. Now, for the French, you can see I succeeded in moving Frassin's command, and Alberghetti has this large cav force that actually did succeed in coming in. It's fairly likely for all the troops, for the French to come on the board. What's hard is to get them all moving, because there's just so many commands, and I'm less likely to have a good command pick than the English are. And with this situation, it feels like the French are on the offensive. Now, historically, I think the Allies actually took to the offensive at some point, but I'm not sure. Oh, there he is. Okay. I lost my replacement counter. I didn't realize where he was. He was on the turn record track marking things, and they put a different replacement into play. I've got a few completely out of command units. Most of them have routed off the map or rejoined their commands. This one will be out of command, but he isn't. This one's out of command, but it doesn't mean anything. Got Burgundy on the board. Oh, he's good with that. 6 hex range. I better move him up. He can't command 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He couldn't command 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's move him up a couple. He couldn't command either of these two units of his wing, and I'll just leave these guys behind and say they're not playing. But yeah, because there's just not going to be, there's no way that I can keep everything in command with these huge forces. But if I can swing part of Burgundy's force into play somehow, that's great. If not, too bad. I know Württemberg's got stuff that's out of command over here that I can move, but I think otherwise I've got all my commands kind of aligned pretty well. And then probably not a whole hell of a lot for rally. Nothing's been happening. You know, these units are engaged, but they haven't been fighting. I'm not quite sure why. Cardigan probably should have... See, he doesn't want to cross the river. If he does an assault to fire on this, he's got to cross the river with all his units. Basically, these guys have parked at enough of a distance from the stream that they're not... it's only a stream. That they're not going to engage unless one side or the other attempts a crossing. So that may feel a little weird, but it kind of makes sense. But then why are they fatiguing, or why are they not recovering from fatigue if they're out of firing range, right? I don't know. I really don't like the fatigue rule. I think it causes too many troubles. Okay, so I'll finish up with Oudenarde, and I think that's it, unless I got some kind of rallying to do, which I highly doubt, because nobody's been up to anything. Well, a bunch of picks by both sides, 3 and 4 this time. The French got the initiative again, and this time they chose to I should be rolling reinforcements ahead of time. I don't have any possible French ones anymore, so it's not an issue, but I've been doing it kind of in the moment. This time they chose to move, who's this, Debile, into place. Still not quite ready for the attack. These lined up. Therefore, I chose not to make the attack across the line. Grimaldi hitting the corner here. That seems kind of iffy. Also taking a look at where the victory points are in the game. Scherken, which is here, that's the key spot. So I want to hit that, but not necessarily right away. If I look at some of the others, deep in back, that's here. So if I hit there, I'm risking a lot of points to losing that. Harlingen, again, trying to look for that one. Let's see, where is it? 1914. That's way back here. And not too much worry about losing that. Ain, which is where things kind of started, is good points for both sides. So I'd like to take that. But again, keep in mind other things. Huln, which is back here. So a collapse here or here would cost me a great deal. However, my big points, now I have to take the center of the battlefield, but my big points are at Bever, which is over here. So I'm going to focus on swinging Burgundy over. Completely ahistorical, and one could argue Burgundy taking the lead in the battle would be kind of ridiculous, but there's nothing in the system that prevents this. In particular, I can use whatever CPs I want with whomever I want, and he's got this powerful force here. Now, actually, I'm only committing Frezin. Duras is positioning himself to put more pressure here, or maybe more likely around the river. Although Oudenarde's presence there is causing me problems, because Vendôme only has so much range. He's big, he's good, but he's not that good. So I probably can't go whipping around there. I'm probably going to have to position the cav for a little fight over in here. Not exactly what I want, but I really want this outflank, putting a threat on this and a threat behind the Allied forces. That's at least how I'm looking at it at this point. So I think we're still not going to see the fight start yet, although perhaps if I get a roll with Grimaldi, I might launch it. But I might want to rest and reduce my my fatigue as well. So my next limb was the artillery. I fired off some canister range shot at Debile or whatever. But I've been thinking kind of, where did I go wrong here? Because Marlborough historically doesn't allow the French to deploy their entire force. Now the French engage, and that may be part of it, is keeping the line, you know, the Allies not crossing that bad terrain to fight may be a problem. Maybe I should have moved before things start getting bad. On the other hand, I'm assuming the preponderance... It's hard to tell how to win this scenario. Basically, do I have to launch that attack against the French before they deploy fully? It's not like the Allies are terribly well deployed early on. Or do I count on the fact that I've got good defensive terrain and can probably hold most of the points even against these huge numbers, just because the French command situation is such, they're not going to be able to get everything into the battle in the amount of time that there is. I don't know which way it's going right now. You know, I'm certainly not seeing the historical. The historical had a lot of fighting. Some of that may be early on. Some of that may be the fatigue rules depressing my incentive to fight, as well as the inability to keep lines together. And once they become kind of shattered and disorganized, if you don't have reserves to throw in, well, broken up, if you don't have reserves to throw in, it takes you a half hour to reform your line, not counting any rallying you might want to do. So we saw a sporadic little bit of fighting and then nothing since then. Down to nothing but French limbs in there. The English, well, tightened up Lotham's force and moved Natsmar or whatever over to where Oudenarde is. I was in a horrible position over here and I want to get out of there, but I'm having real trouble. At least I got to slip in back here before any of this cav gets attacked. If it hits me, well, I should break in this direction. So hopefully I won't break up the line too much, but it's not where I want it to be. I never should have crossed the river given, you know, how things develop. But hey, mistakes happen in a battlefield, and this one has been kind of fun to watch these guys trying to get out of there, and it looks like they're going to make it maybe after being hit. And they will provide some additional, well, both some additional defense against the cav, perhaps, but also additional difficulty for the forces that are lying behind. And now Duras' line wheels and marches in this huge column, basically, and just destroys whatever was kicking around here as some of Oudenarde's forces running through. We've got problems going throughout the line now from the disruption of those routes going through. I lost a unit too, but for the French, but street cleaner. Yeah, that was definitely a successful charge. I think I kind of screwed up. I forgot to have the initial firepower value. I gave them an effective charge, a more effective French charge than I should have. I'm not going to go fix that, but that could definitely have skewed the results. This seemed like it was more likely to be a standoff there, but it was very, very effective. The end of the 6 p.m. turn, and we should be starting the battle soon, really. You know, it just doesn't strike me that it behooves the French to push the battle before they get their troops in position. And I feel like the English defensive position is such that having tried to, if I had tried to break that earlier, and where we saw that I did, I got myself in trouble, that wouldn't really work well. So the game doesn't provide an incentive to follow sort of a historical path here, for whatever value that is. I'm not sure how much that bothers me. What we're seeing is the kind of deployment that you'd kind of expect before a set piece, except that all the units are a little too close. You know, we're but well, it's as if Van Damme is able to get the set piece that he desires here. Now, at this point, the question is, well, can the Allies withstand what may be the full brunt of the French advance there? I'm going to send this one up. It's gotten really, really